Welcome along, one and all. League of Europe is back. Season 11 of LOE is about to be set in motion. It is pre-season tonight. We are racing in China at the Shanghai International Circuit. And yes, we are going to get the first action of Season 11 underway very shortly. This is Lobby 1, which is the presumable Division 1 for Season 11 of League of Europe, regarding potentially a couple of small changes to the lineup before the real season does get it underway in Jeddah next week. So keep an eye out for that. In the meantime, we will see how everyone stacks up in the first action we're going to see related to Season 11. Once again, we are at China. You may not be too familiar with my voice over what would be Division 1. My name is Daniel Downey Hoggard. I'm kind of making a comeback to commentating over League of Europe. Typically, you'd be hearing James Head doing over Division 1 this year. You're going to be hearing from me. Normally, I would be joined by Jake Muttit alongside me in the commentary box, but he unfortunately does not have the game installed right now, so I will be flying solo, guiding you through all the action that is about to get going. So we have, I believe, still waiting on a good few drivers to come in. We should be starting around about now, maybe just in the next minute or two. While waiting for that, I suppose I will take you through some of the changes that we're going to be seeing in League of Europe this season, because we are going to make a couple of adjustments to the format. Just for this pre-season race in particular, because we are essentially just trying to gauge everyone's pace, where everyone stands, what everyone is like out on track, safety car and damage are going to be off for this pre-season race, so everyone should be able to run a lights to flag race, and we can get a good indication of where everyone does stand. In League of Europe, we do have a couple of changes to the format, as I mentioned. One big one is that now, instead of the typical one mandatory stop that we've run before, now there are two.
Waving hand.
Under any circumstance. I just realised I have text-to-speech on in the stream, so I might as well get that turned off, so just a second. There we go. That is taken care of. Right, so that problem should have subsided now. So I'll continue my explanation of the rule. So as I said again, 2 mandatory pit stops instead of just the 1. So that will be again same normal to compound rule, but everyone has to make 2 stops, and that is under any circumstances. Any conditions, regardless of whether it's raining or changeable conditions, you have to make a minimum of 2 pit stops throughout the race distance. Also, we are going to have a new point system in League of Europe this season. Before, we've ran something quite similar to the real-life traditional point system, with 25 points to the winner, 18 points to P2, and so on and so forth. Now the winner gets 30 points, second place gets 25, third place gets 21. What's happening here is that we've extended the point scoring range from the top 12 down to the top 15, which means that under most circumstances you would expect that if you manage to finish the race, you've got a very, very good chance of coming away with some points. So it's just a good way of perhaps motivating people to go the full distance, get the race finished, because we have had some trouble with that as of late. We 1 point for pole position, 1 point for the fastest lap of the race, of course only if you're within the top 15. And then in the sprints, and one very important update to the sprint races, we're beginning to count down with a very reduced grid, unfortunately. So only 13 drivers, or maybe 14 drivers that are currently up and running. So that's a little bit of a shame, but nevertheless, we will continue on our way. The sprint race grids for this year, where it was run with just the it was run with one session, a one-shot qualifying session. Now it is done in reverse championship order. So whatever it's done, that will be done during the lobby, customized, and we will have it set up with the lowest placing drivers in the championship at the front and the highest placing championship drivers in the rear of the grid. It is now 12 points for winning that, points for the top 10, yes, so that will be it. So I believe it was top 8 before, so now top 10 points and just 2 more points for the winner of the sprint race. We're now loading our way in to the event, so yeah, let's get this show on the road then. Here we go. So opening up to the pit lane. Again, only 14 drivers here, which is, again, just a little bit of a shame. So we will not get the full picture with every single driver out there. So we're just going to have to see where everyone stands. Of course, being League of Europe and a new season, we do have, certainly from this grid, the majority of last season's drivers still here, but we do have a couple of new faces out there ready to take on this new season. So we'll see who's going to take out onto the track first of all. You can see QVR Verstappen in the Aston Martin. Again, these the teams and drivers, the way they're arranged, may not be final. That selection process is yet to fully go on ahead, so we may not have completely seen. These teams, I should say, are going to be fully representative of what we will see in the actual season. Of course, the grid itself may not be. There may just be 1 and 2 movers and shakers, depending on what we'll see tonight, which is why it is a bit of a shame that we are only going to be having just 14 drivers here tonight. So let's get everything up and running in terms of the data and see how these drivers are going to fare out there. Again, normal 18-minute session. We're just running no sprint race format tonight. It is just a bog standard one and done, normal qualifying, normal Grand Prix, 50% distance. You guys know how it works in league racing. So let's see how things are going to unfold. I'll also talk you through some of the drivers. Of course, we do have a couple of promotees from Division 2 coming up here, although I'm not sure. Well, we do have one of them certainly that is here tonight. Either way though, we are going to run through what a lap should look like around the Shanghai International Circuit. Here we are on board with QVR Verstappen in the Aston Martin, and he had something of a return to form last season, so he'll be looking to iron up even more this season and take on the world here in Season 11. Let's see how he takes on the Shanghai International Circuit, coming over the line and heading up towards turn number 1. An endlessly winding and winding right-hander. You can see him getting down into third gear through the second apex, then flicking it to the left, keeping it third gear, trying to keep the rear tyres in check, then punching out of the way up towards the end of the first sector, then through the kink of turn 5 and braking now. Hard on the brakes, 100% pressure for turn 6, bit of four-wheel sliding there as he powers out of that complex, heading up now flat out through turn number 7. Try and stay tight here so you can open up turn 8, then holding 5th gear all the way through, balancing that throttle pedal, making sure again the car stays pointed in the right direction, opening up the throttle once more, coming out of turn number 10, then to the end of the second sector. The time through the 2 sectors is a 50.8, flicking it in for turn 11, then turn 12, another corner that seems to go on for an eternity, waiting and waiting, and now he goes to full power, exiting out onto the over 1 kilometre long back straight between turns 13 and 14. You'll get up to some of the high speeds you will see anywhere on the calendar here. You can see over 320, 325 kilometres an hour. Of course, we could be seeing some slipstream tactics well, maybe we will see them in this session potentially. I'd expect to see them more during the actual season, of course. Fifth gear, final corner, opening up the exit and opening up the DRS across the line. That's a 130.6 to open up this session from QVR Verstappen. So that is the benchmark. We will see how the other drivers stack up to it. Here is M Slash coming around the final corner once again. All about maximising. You see he actually over deploys going onto the line using all the battery and does a 31 flat for himself. Next up, QVR Gary just stays within the white line. On the run up to the line, he goes second, splits the two drivers we've seen so far. The eventual pole time I would expect to get to the very low 30s or even into the 129s. We shall see. Of course, no one should be compromising on setups. It should be all dry setups as there is no dynamic weather activated in this pre-season race. So Verstappen does remain with the fastest time. Again, all about gathering up benchmarks. Here's someone that you've got to keep an eye out for. Eleanor Knuth, a former driver in the League of Europe, former D2 champion, now returning after one season in Season 1. That was 4 seasons ago now, in Season 7. And he jumps onto a 31-1 just behind Slash. As your Shadowglow, a driver that I don't know too much about, but I have been told he is coming back from a very lengthy hiatus from league racing and showing very immediately he is bang on that pace, just going slightly quicker than Verstappen, 130.5. These guys, though, still easing into the session at the moment, so expect some much quicker times, I imagine, as the 18 minutes begin to run down. As we should have much faster times and much more impressive laps on the way from these Division 1 beasts. So let's see who's going to step up next. Next up, Sweet Crown, a very familiar face up in Division 1 of League of Europe as of late, flying through that final corner, taking it very gracefully and goes narrowly second behind his de facto teammate for the night, GR Shadowglow. Just 200ths of a second between those, just 300ths of a second covering the top three after this very early stage in the session. Ariel Pease in the McLaren goes fourth on a 130.7, and further back we are going to be seeing, it's of course a bit of a transition point in the session at this moment with Shadowglow on top as it stands, and a lot of the drivers, of course, still getting those laps in, others maybe just finishing after those first runs. Here we are on board with Luke 05 HD in the McLaren, the Division 2 champion. So he has got a lot of expectation on his shoulders making that move to Division 1. Goes 6th, 130.961 is the time that he is put down. So it's the 6th driver now into the 1 minute 30s. Let's keep an eye out here. So we've got NSX Cucumber. Lifebout is invalidated on this lap. NSX Cucumber, of course, very, very close to winning the title last season. And of course, without NSX Montana on the grid, he'll certainly be looking to go one better than he did last year and the year before that. He goes just over 10th off the current provisional pole time. As it stands, we have QVR Alp also making a return to League of Europe. Was here back in Season 9. Of course, managed to grab a race win, 4th in the championship standings. So the man currently in the Williams for tonight is going to continue to take on the rest of the Shanghai International Circuit. So 10 drivers have lap times on the board right now. Still, of course, very early days. We're just shy of the halfway point in the session. So we're still waiting on that as we see QVR out continuing to go around. That last win came at the Canadian Grand Prix back in Season 9. Finished 4th in the championship. Now back looking for even more success, more fruitfulness from Season 11 of League of Europe. So he continues down that back straight. You can just get an idea of some of the wing levels that they're running. 327 seems about right for the speed heading into the hairpin. See how quickly the car rotates around there. It's extraordinary. Now shifts up to 6th. Would probably go down to 5th for this final corner, opening up the throttle and full throttle to the line. And he goes fastest. 130.4. The time's now starting to come down in this midpoint of the session as everyone looks to get some more representative, more serious times, you could say, up on to the board. So QVR Alp has that fastest time at the moment. We'll see if anyone is going to be able to topple that one. Quick water break, my apologies. Of course, doing this on my own is not exactly the easiest thing in the world. Of course, I am trying my absolute damnedest out here. Here on the circuit at the moment, we have Lifeboat and the AlphaTauri big lock up there, heading in to that hairpin. Opening up the throttle once again, and watch here as he flicks it into that final corner. Again, uses 4th gear. We see most drivers use 5th heading through there, but it seems to work for him. He comes over the line, goes 5th, 130.699. Behind him, Morocco and the Mercedes, of course, being D1. Another very, very well-respected driver within D1 who's continued to rack up results. He goes to 8th position on the road, 130.7, right in the mid-pack. So that's how things stand for the moment. We see QVR Gary opening up a new lap there. He's got a 130.9 to his name, which he set very early on in the session. So we'll see how he continues about his time out there on the track. So QVR Alp still maintains that grip over top one in the standings as Gary goes around, coming out of the opening snail section, manages to recover it. Of course, no damage, so he didn't have to worry about stacking it into the wall, but unfortunately that is going to be the end of that flying lap. Behind him then, Slash manages to carefully navigate that throttle pedal on the way out, and you can see him burning that battery down to around about 70%. Is currently finding over a quarter of a second in the first sector, which even if he doesn't find any more time to the rest of the lap, that would be putting him in around about P7. So he has got plenty more time to find that time throughout the remainder of the lap. By the way, one thing I may have missed, Shadow Glow did just improve, goes narrowly behind QVR out there. You see just 4 thousandths is the gap between those two. So very competitive out there. Of course, we're still looking for some faster times, I believe. I believe there is still a lot more potential out there on this grid. So we will see if that is going to be unlocked. First with Slash, heading up down towards the hairpin once again. And he hits 326 kilometers an hour, brakes late, rotates the car maybe a little bit too late on the brakes, was very aggressive on the way in, and watch this approach to the final corner over the curbs on both the inside and the outside. Of course, don't want to climb the sausage curb on the inside. It's still a good run though, and he goes P3, just some 400ths of a second shy of the top time set by his teammate for the evening, QVR Alp. Knuth is also finding time out there on circuit, goes 4th, 130.525. Wow, it is getting very, very tasty up there. Here is the Haas driver, Hazara, not a driver I know too much about, it must be said. So we'll see what he can do, opening up that throttle pedal down the straight, shifting up into 8th gear and opening up the DRS. So let's see what time this is going to be. Very, very fast down the straight. Must be actually does have an invalidation on that lap time, but that was interesting how high the top speed was, right around 330 kilometers an hour. Looks like he's still going to push on and set what could be a fairly representative time. It is a fairly fast time, a 130.589. That would be good for P5 at the moment, but of course still has to get a clean lap on the board. We'll see who's furthest along then in their progress. I believe the only man on a competitive lap then is NSX Cucumber, again the perennial championship contender in D1 right now, and he is improving just by just under 0.2 of a second at this stage, which would put him right in that hunt for pole position. So let's see how this is going to unfold. Going to open up that DRS down near the end of the lap. And hitting those brake pedals, see, down into third gear. Managing that throttle again. Opening it up. And then heading up towards the final corner. You can see the gaps there, how close it is and competitive. So we'll see if anyone can find that super lap. And that might just be it. NSX Cucumber, 130.3. That's more like it. And put some distance, some breathing room between himself and the rest of the opposition. We're getting near the final runs of the session now. So that time is going to be quite the target for everyone else to try and shoot for in these closing stages. So right now we're going to be experiencing something of a lull in proceedings, and we will see who is going to step up and shine. Remember, lot riding on this, even though, well, there may not be any real stakes or any real pressure on these guys in terms of performance. Of course, there isn't much riding on this, but you don't want to impress, and of course you don't want to potentially find yourself moving down to Division 2. This is Lobby 1. This should be the fastest, most competitive drivers here. So, a lot of pride at stake. There's no doubt about that, even if it is just pre-season. These guys are super competitive, so they will want to maximise everything, make sure they are the ones coming out on top. In this fairly reduced grid, it is perhaps easier for these guys to stand out individually, so I imagine that's going to be the goal for a lot of these guys. Rocco Reggie for real, of course, navigating his way around the final part of the lap. He's going to be the first guy really to open up these final runs. Some drivers beginning to fall out of the pit lane there. Going to be very busy out on track very soon as Shadowglow has retired. I believe that's in the pit lane. So that will be the end of his session then, currently setting P3 on a high 130.4. So there you go, 130.487 is going to be the time. We'll see if it does remain in P3, but there's going to be a lot of competition coming from the rear. So we're going to have to be tracking everyone individually as they head on down to the start of the final flying laps. Rocco Reggie for real in the Mercedes, opening up down that front straight and getting the final runs of this qualifying session underway. So 13 drivers now will be vying for that pole position in that time of NSX Cucumber, who's also just retired. Not enough time to get out for another run. I imagine he'll be reasonably happy with the target he's put down, with a good gap to the drivers behind Rocco. A 23.8 in the first sector is actually nearly a tenth down on the lap he is currently set. So maybe not exactly what he was looking for from that first sector. QVR Verstappen is behind. It's lighting up purple on the map, but that can always be a little bit unreliable. You can see the downforce and the mechanical grip being pushed to the absolute limit through this middle sector. Runs a little bit wide of the apex through turn 9, but continues on his way. Rocco's middle sector is just slightly up, 50.9. Verstappen a 50.6. That's very quick and right in the hunt once again, potentially for a pole position. May even get a very, very small slipstream effect from Rocco up the road. It may not make much of a difference, I imagine, though. So they're going to head on down. Rocco some halfway down the straight now, getting up towards the end of it. Of course, the high speed on the track to one of the slowest, if not the slowest corner on the track. So it's a huge braking event where a lot of time can be won or lost. He takes that in second gear. Now finally opens it up, running out of battery, of course, towards the end of the lap as it runs on full all the way through to the line. And we'll see what time Rocco is going to put up. He did find time at the end of the lap, 30.6. Verstappen goes fastest, just pips the time of NSX Cucumber. So that currently sits at the top of the timing sheets. Moving up is Matthew 40, goes 9th, 1:30.6. Gary goes 3rd, that's a very good time, 1:30.3. Splits Cucumber and Alp. Alp, meanwhile, is just 700ths up on his time. Needs to find a little bit more if he wants pole position. Flying through that final corner. Running up to the line. He goes 2nd. Wow, how close is that? Up at the top of the timing sheets. Verstappen still holding that provisional pole time. Is that going to stand? Lifeboat improves. Goes 5th fastest on the track at the moment then. Pease is a 50.7. That's just 1/10 down on Verstappen's time. Sweet Crown himself then 50.7 through that middle sector, rounding that final corner, pinning the throttle, running to the line. He goes first, goes fastest by 300ths of a second at the moment. Is that going to do it then? Knuth coming around that hairpin, balancing the throttle pedal, then full throttle at the moment, 1:30.5. Just 3/10 down on the time of Verstappen. Comes up to the line. What's it going to be? It's going to be 7th place, 1:30.486. Pease comes up to the line himself, goes 7th, 1:30.455. And finally Hazara, I did not see where he went. I think that was a valid time. I'm not exactly sure what position it was. So we will finally round that up after I take another sip of water. There we go. So Sweet Crown does nab that pole position just ahead of Verstappen from Alp and Cucumber. 400ths of a second covering the top 4 drivers. Hazara did go 5th. I've now been told he drives in PSGLF 3, as several of the debutants do for this season. And he's just under a 10th off pole. Gary behind just over a 10th off of pole from Lifeboat, Pease, Knuth, Shadowglow in 10th. From Slash P11, Rocco, Matt and Luke rounding out the grid. 13 of the 14 drivers within 4/10ths of the pole time, so that's very impressive. So, we will then get going into the race. Remember, typical Shanghai strategies you may well be used to, they may not be running here. And now we do have mandatory 2 stops, remember that. So now we will get going, loading in to the race. And 14 drivers ready to vie for the top spot in pre-season. And of course, well, the qualifying does give some indication of where everyone stands. It's really this race where we're going to see exactly what the pecking order could be, who could potentially be having to move down. Again, this is Lobby 1. This is provisionally what you'd expect Division 1 of League of Europe Season 11 to look like. Of course, though, it may not end up that way, so we will see. So we'll just be seconds out now, looking to get this one going. Remember, there was safety car as well in pre-season here. So we will just get a lights to flag race without any major stoppages. Everyone now lines up on that grid to go away for the formation lap. I seem to hype that up. I, for some reason, was expecting it to start there. But anyway, we will get going. You can see the tyre selections there on your display. Remember, 2 stops, so you'll have to adjust that strategy for that. So it's mainly medium compound tyres that are going on. You can see on Sweet Crown, Verstappen, Alp, Cucumber, Gary, Pease, Shadowglow, Slash, Rocco, Matt and Luke all opting for those mediums. Lifeboat and Knuth going for the softs. Watch out for those guys in the early laps of the race. Of course, soft tyres, not particularly long lasting, but could have some merit certainly in a 2-stop race. Hazara opting for the hards, which I find to be a slightly strange choice in a mandatory 2-stop race. Please ignore those possible race strategies on the bottom of the screen. That is not to be taken seriously at all. As of course, we're going to be running 2 stops instead of just the 1. So Sweet Crown leading them around. Verstappen joining on the front row of the grid. Two guys that do very much like this track, and it does show from those qualifying results. But of course, such a close competitive session. And who knows what that's going to mean for this race. I'd expect without too much tyre management being into play, obviously there will be some. I'd expect this race to be very closely fought, right, unless we do get a series of incidents, of which of course we're hoping to avoid. And with no damage, I would expect that every driver should, on paper, be finishing this race, but of course it may not turn out that way. So now, heading up to the grid, see if everyone is okay in terms of parking it and doesn't get sent back a little while, by a few meters. So the Red Bull with the Aston Martin pulled up beside him, ready to get this show on the road. So this is the first action we will see in League of Europe Season 11. Sweet Crown and Verstappen sharing that front row. They leave in the grid in Shanghai, but too early for Sweet Crown. That's a drive-through penalty for a jump start. So in the de facto lead of this race, Verstappen trying to hold off Alp to the outside into turn one then. Lifeboat trying to squeeze three wide on the inside behind them then. Running up behind Alp then on the outside is the Williams, and they're going to run side by side. So Sweet Crown jumps out to the lead, but has that drive-through penalty to serve. For the most part, it does seem as though everyone has got through relatively safely. You can see possession changes all the way down the order then, as Shadowglow tries to hold off a hungry pack of cars behind then. His P's right in the middle of the road with two Mercs up behind him. You can see the smoke from cars locking up. Cucumber's gone around out of turn 6. Not sure if there was an incident. If he was turned, it's hard to tell. Gary's gone round as well at the back. So those two caught adrift in the early stages. Sweet Crown from Verstappen, Lifeboat third on those softs, looking to make early ground from Alp Hazara. Shadowglow still tucked in behind then in the Red Bull behind the Haas. Of course, that Haas is going to be on the defensive early, trying to get those hard tyres in the operating window to use in these opening laps and try and stay afloat. In the meantime, Knuth, you can see on the soft tyres, he'll be looking to make some early progress as they round onto the back straight. Lifeboat making a very, very hot start then, running parallel with QVR. Verstappen down the back straight and goes in front. Verstappen, I think, was quite happy to give that one up. These guys not deploying much of their battery, neither is Alp in third. Hazara has got Shadowglow on the inside, heading into the hairpin, gets forceful, does the Red Bull man, and is going to pull out ahead of that one. So the Red Bull goes up, the Haas moves down on the hard tyres, struggling to get the nose in there. Of course, not as much grip afforded from those hards. Sweet Crown has decided to stay out just for that one lap, then continuing on and choosing not to serve the penalty right away. You can see Pease trying to line up Hazara with that early tyre advantage. At the moment, those yellow wall tyres going to be working better, looking for any such way through. You can see a bit of oversteer from the rear wheels of the Haas. Pease putting on the overtake mode, looking to try and open up a move towards turn 6. He's going to spy that space down the inside, brakes a little bit later, manages to get the car turned in and through. Ariel Pease goes to P6 on the road, trying to stay with the pack in front. Lifeboat, though, making ground very early on. Of course, it's going to be critical for Lifeboat's chances in this race early to really open that up. This is where the merit of that soft tyre strategy is in a two-stop race. If he can climb into the range of Sweet Crown, of course, Sweet Crown may box at the end of this lap. In any case, Sweet Crown using more battery than most of the other cars behind, looking to just open up as much of a gap as possible. You might as well, of course, given that handicap of the drive-through penalty. Not sure what's going on with the intervals. I'm hoping they will correct themselves at some point down the line. So we'll just watch as everyone filters down the straights with the race beginning to settle down. You can see a full run of cars then as Knuth looks up towards Hazara, not close enough to make a diving lunge into the hairpin as everyone filters through. You can see the rear end snapping from the Alfa Romeo of Matteo Forte. Of course, everyone, the priority has to be just to stay in contact. Sweet Crown is boxed, so there's the drive-through penalty going to serve. He will drop to behind the rear of the train and will look to try and make a run back in this race. Of course, it won't count as a pit stop. It's just going to be a continuation of this first stint. So, to recap after the first laps, then you can see Lifeboat does lead, trying to break away. Verstappen has definitely deployed some battery, making sure he stays in contact. And with a soft runner at the front, it does mean that the pace is going to be quite high. So if there is going to be a break in the train, it may come in these early stages, especially with Hazara under pressure now from Knuth, who's going to sweep outside of turn 7. And he's going to get that one done, presumably with the inside line of turn 8. More grip, of course, on those softs, at least in these early stages. And the move is done, and just about managing to stay in the DRS train behind the 5th place McLaren of RALPs. Hazara is still right there, though, tucked in underneath. Of course, though, you don't want to get too ambitious in the very, very early stages of this race. Rocco, I imagine, will want to follow through very closely behind Knuth. Knuth just staying within that DRS range, and it's going to be active for the first time. Then Lifebout looks as though he may have managed to just about put him under pressure, but not quite enough to break the DRS. So everyone from behind is still getting that effect, that help, as Rocco's using that to draw alongside the Haas up onto the inside and to the hairpin, and clear. Rocco goes P7, and Hazara continues to fall back on those hard tyres. Of course, they will come into their own later on in the stint, but right now it will be something of a pain. So at the moment, the grid's still together. Hazara being very patient then, not looking to try and force any moves up behind Rocco. Of course, the main priority for all these guys is just going to be staying in the pack. Gary, after getting caught up in a start lane incident, is cut adrift, as is Sweet Crown after the jump start and the drive-through penalty, using a lot of battery trying to make up for lost time in this grid that is still being pulled along by Lifebout, with Verstappen beginning to look a little bit more competitive and putting Alp under pressure. I say that, Alp doing a very good job of managing that battery, as always, it must be said. So continuing on his way, Knuth trying to hold on, then you can see the battery beginning to drain from that Mercedes. So things begin to settle down, everyone just running in formation, as is very typical of league racing on F1 23. But Lifebout is going to start struggling with those tyres, you'd imagine, very, very shortly. And you can see Verstappen beginning to close up. Now, of course, typically in league racing, you want to stay behind your rival often in situations like these. But I wonder if Verstappen is going to look to try and force a move. He's not using any overtake mode, so it looks like he is going to remain patient. There has been a break in the train as Knuth has lost contact with the group up in front. That's going to definitely goad Rocco into making a move on his teammate, and does so. Goes P6 behind Slash, moves on Luke, goes up to P9 on the road, and Matthew 40 looking at Cucumber, who's actually been somewhat cut adrift, trying to work his way back. And of course, no damage in these races, remember. So Lifebout still running ahead of Verstappen, although for how much longer? Verstappen's going to time that move on the run up towards turn number 1 and through. Hazara has pitted off the hards, so I wonder, and I'm very curious about this strategy that he's going to be running. Of course, starting on the hards at any mandatory 2-stop race, going on to the medium tyres, and that's going to take them presumably quite a bit further on in the race, maybe splitting these stints in two, going medium, we shall see. So we are just over 4 laps into the race, and we have a group of 5 for the lead as Rocco tries to bridge across after losing out from Knuth, whose pace is starting to suffer on those soft tyres, then slipping back through the order. So Verstappen hasn't been able to open up that gap on Lifebout just yet, but if the softs do go off, then there's certainly going to be an invitation for the likes of Alp, Shadowglow and Peas to try and follow through and not allow Verstappen to get further up the road. But at the moment there's no danger of that. Lifebout has stayed very nicely in contention with a lot of battery to use, much more so than Verstappen does, who does a little blip of the overtake mode. Heading out of turn 12, isn't going to continue to follow through with that. Alp is going to follow through though with a move on Lifebout, and Shadowglow looks to follow through right up behind the Williams, tucked in. You can see how powerful that DRS and slipstream with the overtake effect is, and both those guys cruising past the stricken AlphaTauri, who I don't know if he's going to try and make an early box. That won't happen. Knuth on the meantime is going to come in the Mercedes, so getting off those soft runs quite deep into the pit lane, manages to stay just about in the frame as Peas manages to make a move on Lifebout. So you can see the softs, how quickly they degrade even in this early point of the race. And Lifebout is taking it quite easy on the battery, not working too hard to try and defend these positions. Now I imagine he's going to potentially box at the end of this lap, or use that, try and get a little bit of a toe using that DRS train, try and stay in the group for a little bit longer if possible. We shall see. Knuth has emerged right behind Hazara. So two guys that were running alternate strategies off of the typical medium start. Now they're both on the medium tyres after making that box with not much distance between them. Hazara with much more battery than Knuth, so Knuth's going to have to work very hard to stay in that DRS range and create an opportunity. So up in front, Verstappen does lead, Alp does run second, comfortably holding on for now. Verstappen, of course, having to work quite hard in the lead to continue to up that pace. Rocco has managed to bridge across into DRS at quite a cost. No battery remaining at such an early point in the race. That's going to be quite the handicap. You can see even with DRS, unable to open up and only 316 Ks down the straight. Is that top speed. We'll see if any of the medium runners decide to pit. Not at this stage. They'll want to extend. Lifeboat does not. He wants to get rid of those soft tyres as soon as possible, so he does box. Rocco is going to find it very hard to bridge across now with no overtake mode to deploy. Another gap goes back to Slash. Gary picks up a time penalty heading out of that last corner very early in the race. China not a track where you typically expect to get a lot of penalties, but that last corner is something of a hotspot. Very easy to run wide there, as I believe Gary has just demonstrated. There's Hazara's fastest lap, a 1:30.4. He's managed to gap Knuth. Really impressive pace. Lifeboat even emerges behind, so that is the power of that undercut. Moving straight through, and Hazara on the mediums in the Haas does clearly have quite a bit of pace to use. Knuth up behind Lifeboat, but without much battery, I imagine he's going to look to try and stay in that position tucked up behind the AlphaTauri. So it's a group of four for the lead as it stands still. Verstappen is out in front. Again, without much battery to use, just trying to manage that pace right now. There isn't really a great deal of wheel-to-wheel racing in this early stages as everyone just decides to tuck in at the moment. Again, another blip of the overtake, which he seems to like doing. He leads by a quarter of a second. Shadowglow quite eagerly running up behind Alp, but of course very difficult to create a move when you're in that DRS train. You can see the Mercedes of Rocco running just behind. Behind that, Cucumber is lining up a move. On look, decides to dive late on the brakes. Can he get that one stopped and turned in? Yes, he can. He manages to ease just in front of the McLaren and through. NSX Cucumber goes to P7 on the road. All the medium runners continue to stay out. Luke did not get a good run through the final corner, so this is going to open up Matt, but looks to be running higher wings. They're actually not using that overtake mode eventually down the straight. You can see the red lights flashing, harvesting for that McLaren, and Matt's going to try and create a bit of a move. It's very, very forceful on the inside of turn number 2. Can he switch it back? Luke's going to see that one coming and park the car onto the apex of turn 3, and that possession will be held. Now he'll look to try and keep up with Slash and Cucumber just up ahead as they bridge up towards Rocco, currently running in P5. So it looks as though the main group of medium starters beginning at least to form two separate groups on the road, the lead group and the group for P5, which looks to be on the verge of being conjoined. Slash himself though struggling with battery, as is of course Rocco up ahead, as the top four continue to stretch away. 2.1 seconds now the gap from P4 down to P5 behind. So that's how things stand at this moment in time. We are kind of in the calm before the storm period in the race. P's on the overtake mode. You can see how much of an effect that has, and he's going to pull up alongside Shadowglow. Alp as well is going to make a pass for the lead on Verstappen. So two swaps down the straight on the lead group. Verstappen is continuing to run around the outside, so he's not giving up this one easily. Eventually he does tuck in as Alp pulls to the pit lane, and the other three do stay out. So Alp taking a hold of the lead and deciding to just book it out of there. He is going to come in, and this is going to be an interesting phase as well as Pease begins to look, swarming left and right, looking behind Verstappen as Shadowglow sits behind him in third with a big battery advantage. What I was looking for with QVR Alp though, where is he going to emerge? Of course, Sweet Crown after the drive-through penalty goes past, but here is that group: Hazara, Lifebout and Knuth, and he's going to be behind that lot. So there is the power of the undercut once again. And he's going to emerge some nearly 2 seconds behind the rear of that train, which is Knuth. So you can see that undercut working, but the tyre advantage is going to come back to Alp. So we'll see if that gap is going to come down. I would expect it to. in these next couple of laps. In the meantime, I imagine most of these medium runners should be coming in very, very soon. So it is Verstappen, P's Shadow Glow behind Luke, makes a pass on Matt, who must have made an error through that section there at turns 9 and 10. So he's going to try and work his way back in. Luke himself, though, because of that, losing contact to Slash. You can see in front of him, Cucumber having a huge moment out of the second snail section. So Slash running up behind Tim and is going to look to challenge into the hairpin, decides to tuck back in. Pease makes a move on Verstappen again for the lead. Verstappen's going to switch that back. Of course, both these guys may be thinking about pitting. Let's see at the end of this lap. And no, neither of them will pit, but Verstappen will get a switch back through the final corner. That's very unorthodox. He moves back in front. So hard racing, and you can see Shadow Glow switching down the straight, going past one. Can he get past two? He's going to go wheel to wheel with QVR. Verstappen has the inside run through turn 2. Verstappen's not going to give this one up, and these guys are going to duel it out on track. In the meantime, while the group behind continues to make ground, they're still parallel out of turn 3, but Shadow Glow is just half of those ahead. He's got the inside of the turn 6. Verstappen's going to brave it out on the outside, brake a little bit later, but he's going to run out of space there. Pease as well will try and threaten on the run towards turn 7, won't do it, but these three really get into it in this early stage of the race. Wow. That was quite something. They've really decided to go at it. And exchanging the possessions with Shadow Glow going from the back of the group to the front, that was pretty spectacular. Down that straight, making that double move and eventually finishing off the manoeuvre with the move on Verstappen. But all the while, that group led now by Lifeboat. Sweet Crown is in front of them. Of course, on much older tyres, the tyres that he started the race on from pole position, remember, as Lifeboat runs out of track limits. I'm not sure if that will be a warning. It was induced by a bit of an oversteer moment. Of course, penalties could be very critical if the fight for the lead continues to remain close. Knuth getting a really nice run, though, onto the inside of Hazara. They get very close. Knuth has to try and check his line to make sure he doesn't run in and tag the Haas driver in front of him. In the end, he stays behind as Lifebout is going to try and extend that gap to the guys behind, and he's going to do that very effectively by making that move. As into the pits comes QVR Verstappen from the lead group, as does Rocco Reggie for real behind, and M Slash further back still. So we're seeing now the continuation of the first round of pit stops. Knuth and Hazara are still battling into that final corner, with Knuth braving it around the outside and getting in front into that 9th place. Hazara will maybe look to try and fight back, but there's no room there. Of course, almost no braking zone in towards turn 1, so very difficult to create that move even with all the different lines to run. So Knuth runs 6th, Hazara 7th. He's slipped down the train as Lifebout looks to try and make that move. As you can see where Alp has come back, Verstappen emerges a long way behind, and that is the 2-lap difference really. And these guys that have extended longer on the medium stint beginning to suffer for it. I wonder if they're thinking of a soft stint at the end of the race. Maybe that's why they're running these longer stints. We shall see as Sweet Crown continues to back everyone up, and this is great for Lifebout. A car is off the road up ahead. That is NSX Cucumber, who has spun off out of turn number 9 and is going to rejoin but lose a lot of ground in this race. Is going to come up behind cars that have pitted. So the 2nd place finisher in the championship last season, not his night. Of course, it is only pre-season, but ultimately it still doesn't feel good, I imagine, to have an uncompetitive race like this. Still keeping an eye out on the leaders. I'd expect them both to box at the end of this lap. Knuth behind Sweet Crown, and that move will be made down the straight as Alp as well is going to cruise past Hazara and try and get up towards Sweet Crown the Red Bull. Can't do it as rear locking from Knuth at the hairpin runs in, puts him out of shape. And so he's not able to open up the gap that he may have wanted, and on top of that, the gap to Lifebout isn't exactly going to close. Out gets a great run out of the final corner. He's going to cruise past Sweet Crown here and go up to Pete number 4 and sweep. In the meantime, past Knuth, goes past that entire train with fresh tyres on. His Cucumber has opted to retire. That's in the pit lane, which is a real shame. To be honest, that's not what we want to see, especially in pre-season with damage off. Really, we should be seeing everyone running lights to flag. I mean, I have no doubt that NSX Cucumber will be a Division 1 driver next year, but still, it's not what we want to see. Hazara makes a very daring move hard on the brakes on the inside into turn 6, and Sweet Crown is disposed of, so Sweet Crown continues to falter and fall down the order. Of course, not much you can really do about it with such a tyre disadvantage. Those mediums are really going to be starting to go off, as they will on his teammate's car, Shadowglow, who continues to run on his own out in front. Again, does not look like someone that hasn't been league racing, but he is going to lose a lot of time in this phase of the race, and a lot of comeback driving is going to be needed to bring himself back into play here. So Shadowglow continues on his way. We're just coming up on the midway point of the Grand Prix. And we'll see if he does decide to eventually come in. Yes, he does. So in comes the Red Bull man, GR Shadowglow, from the lead of the race. We will see where he does emerge. I would assume relatively far down the order. This is going to hand the lead to Lifebout, of course, who runs fairly comfortably out in front, but with Alp, who's burned a lot of battery then, chasing that down. Shadowglow opts for a soft middle stint. Sweet Crown is coming as well for the double stack for the Red Bulls. Verstappen sets the fastest lap of the race, closing in on the lead group then, trying to make up for lost time after losing out through the first pit stops, pitting later. But this is the other side of that sword now, as Shadowglow does emerge just a couple of seconds behind Rocco on the soft tyres. That's going to give, of course, a few laps of super grip to use for the Red Bull. We'll see if he can use that to good effect as Matt with a huge moment out of turn 3, and that's going to have him flanked from either side as they run 3 abreast through turn 5, and then into turn number 6, still 3 abreast. Matt has to back out of it as down the inside goes Slash with Luke, side by side up towards turn 7. Nothing between them here as Slash takes the inner line and manages to get in front then as Matt tries to fade it back around the outside of turn number 8. Can't quite find that one, so has to tuck back in, losing 2 spots in just a handful of corners then. Luke, I imagine, is well within range of getting that move back then, but all these guys, other than Matt, have very low battery, so Matt may actually be able to come back as we see the leading cars coming down the straight. Alp has managed to bridge across to Lifebout, and it's going to be a move down the straight, and he's going to complete that one. Hazara continued to move back through the order, gets in front of Knuth, and Verstappen will try and do so as well. Hazara one's deep out in front, just in front of him, so Verstappen will try and capitalise. He's up with the outside, heading up towards the final corner. Is he going to do another up and under? Yes, he does. That same move once again, heading out of the final corner, and they're going to run side by side down the straight on that overtake button. You can see the effect it has, and he gets through. Knuth's going to try and follow up around the outside into turn 1. Can he find that move the long way around? He may just about be able to get in front, but there's Hazara over on the inside. He's going to run very, very deep through the second part of the corner, and Knuth had to get out of that one. So he has to yield that position eventually, slot in behind the Haas as Verstappen uses that opportunity to get ahead, and he may be able to break the DRS, but Hazara has older tyres but more battery. We'll see if that works, but I think it's going to be very difficult to stay in that DRS range. So Verstappen managing that battle very, very well, and now has an opportunity to close in on the group of 2, dueling for the lead just up in front as Alp begins to stretch Lifebout on 2-lap older tyres, trying to stay in touch. But as Lifebout has done all race, running a very calm race, keeping so much more of that battery than most of the opposition, and that could serve him well if he's able to stay in contact. You can see just another blip of the overtake, as we'd like to see drivers doing, coming onto that straight, giving that momentum, opening up the DRS and staying well in contact. Behind, we have more scrapping on the road as Knuth tries to get revenge on Hazara, pulls to the inside. The slipstream is broken, so Pease will try and get a double move here. He's going to go on the inside, brake later into the hairpin. Can he get it stopped? He cuts across the curb over on the inside. Does get the move done, albeit in a little bit of unideal circumstances. In fact, that was an illegal move. Has to pull across, and there's chaos as they come into the pit lane. That was Hazara trying to box from the mediums off. Shadowglow taking advantage, cruising past Knuth down the straight. That was Pease having to jump out the way after an illegal overtake on the inside of the hairpin, and all hell broke loose on the run down to the final corner. Out of that comes Rocco Reggie for real, now in the lead of this group, with Shadowglow right underneath on the overtake, looking to get a move on, looking to get moves done as he comes across the grass, makes a bit of contact, wheel bang into turn 6, runs deep. Rocco will get the switch back out of turn 6, running back now on the outside towards turn 7. You can see the overtake from Shadowglow, trying to stay in possession into turn 7, and does so. Shadowglow holds on to P4 then, and on the softs will begin to make inroads on the group in front. So despite staying out longer, this is the advantage of his strategy, working his way up towards the leaders in front. See, trying to break the toe as well, trying to alleviate any threat from Rocco, who is still low on battery. Peas, after that horrible situation on the last lap, runs 6th, with Knuth dropping back to P7 on wailing tyres now. So I imagine that's going to be a difficult situation for the Mercedes man, the former D2 champion in the future. Lifeboat running up behind Alp, you can see backing off that throttle pedal near the end of the straight as the cat and mouse games begin, and Verstappen begins to bridge across them with more pace than either of these guys on fresher tyres, using the last of his battery to try and eke into that DRS, and he does have DRS. So that will make things easy for a couple of laps. In the meantime, Shadowglow may be bridging across with Rocco and Peas both in tow. So this fight for the lead may be about to get very interesting. Peas, though, struggling to keep up. Rocco has been able to stay nicely with Shadowglow, who's low on battery himself. We're getting up towards that stage where we may be seeing the second pit stops. You can see how everyone has done that so far. Hazara again pitting earlier than others despite starting on hards. So that undercut again is going to be brought into use as Lifeboat is dropped back here. Verstappen, to my surprise, has got that move done, and I have no idea where that one came from. I apologise for missing that, because I thought that Lifeboat was fairly comfortably in second place. Now Verstappen has that possession. Lifeboat still being very, very easy on the battery, as Verstappen now up behind the Williams man. These guys both members of the Claim Vigor Racing team, of course. At the end of this middle stint, Shadowglow has managed to get across, so we're back to this battle for the lead between these four. And Verstappen looks as though he may be interested in getting this move done. Let's see, using again the last of the overtake, he may be trying to position himself before the boxes for the second time. He does get the move done on Alp down the straight, and they swap positions for the race lead. Behind Peas moves past Rocco, who's dropped back on this lap from Shadowglow. Shadowglow's searing pace on those soft tyres is too much for either of these drivers, as now Shadowglow getting up to this lead fight, and he'll try and move his way up the train. Lifeboat sits just in front. Meanwhile, again, that's another water break, I apologise. Knuth has elected to come in and get that second stop out the way. We'll see where he emerges. Vex versus Hazara. That's going to be a set of mediums to take him to the end of this race. I cannot look away from the lead battle for a moment, though, as Shadowglow on the inside of Lifeboat. Can he get that one stopped? Yes, he can. Shadowglow to P3 on the road then. On the best tyres, of course, we've seen those softs go off quickly, but he's still making good use of them. Now runs on the podium as Lifeboat has gone from a few seconds ahead of the race to being at the back of the lead train. Of course, that is the disadvantage of pitting early. Eventually, you're going to have to feel that pain. He's still not using any battery whatsoever, and doesn't seem remotely interested in racing these guys for net position. Instead, just opting to try and stay in contact, perhaps. We'll see if he does use any overtake coming down this straight. Opening up the throttle, and there it is. So trying to get the maximum advantage of the DRS and the slipstream. Shadowglow is using that to good effect, with Alp just in front, with Verstappen, the second place man on the grid, still holding on to that race lead. So that's how things stand. Of course, we may be approaching the second round of pit stops. Will any of these guys decide to come in? Lifeboat, I thought he may. He's not going to. He is going to just try and, again, use that tow from the cars in front, trying to stay on a strong pace and keep himself relatively afloat versus the lead group. This is Hazara, who now runs nearly 5 seconds clear of Knuth with just 2 lap older tyres. Slash has decided to come in as well to take his second stop. We'll see where he does emerge, running a hard middle stint, just a soft hard middle stint. That sounds wrong. As he drops back behind. He's going to put on a set of mediums again for that final stint. So, this is how things stand. Verstappen still out in front. Alp still running P2. Shadowglow honing in on the front two after a storming stint on those soft tyres. With a couple of very, very daring moves throughout this race, Shadowglow has really put on a show in these early stages, and that hopefully is a good sign of things to come for the real season. Of course, starting in Jeddah next week. And he's showing a good return to form. Up behind Alp, who's going to have to look over his shoulder here. You want to be second in a DRS train instead of third realistically and practically. So he's going to try and move in front then. You can see the DRS is going to open for the pair of them. Shadowglow doesn't look like he's going to be eyeing up a move. Alp is going to get very close to Verstappen in the lead. Decides to back off though. So not committing to a full overtake mode. One guy that might be doing that is Matthew 40. He comes past Luke 05 HD down the main straight. Goes P7. Luke having to settle now for 8th position. These guys, of course, preparing for those final stops. Lifeboat does eventually dive to the pit lane. And we'll see where he emerges versus Hazara and Knuth. That's going to be one to look out for. Just a little update on the pit stops. You can see the bottom 4 runners in the race have all taken their final pit stop. So we'll see where these guys are going to come into it, when the rest of the runners do decide to make their final stops. You can see Lifeboat emerging from the box, and he's going to be right in front of Knuth. Knuth is going to have to work hard to try and get in that DRS range, but with a huge deficit in battery, Lifeboat, you'd imagine, could be able to open up that gap if he so pleases. He does blip the overtake once again. Knuth burning all of his, and you know it's going to be a desperate uphill struggle to stay within that DRS train, that DRS range I should say, of the man in front, Lifeboat. So Verstappen still leads. Alp still runs P2 on aging tyres, so these guys, you'd imagine, they're all setting up for their final stops. Pease and Rocco still shadowing, those guys just running a couple of seconds adrift of the front trio. Verstappen has used essentially all of his battery, so he's going to be running out, and Alp is closing in. He's going to go to the inside into the hairpin. They're going to be parallel on the brakes. Alp locking it all up, trying to get it stopped and turn in. There is still space for Verstappen to drive clean around the outside and hold on to that race lead. Is he going to come into the pits? No, he does not. Neither does Alp, neither does Shadowglow. They all decide to stay out as Pease gets out of shape out of the final corner, manages to hold it together, manages to stay ahead of Rocco as these guys running just behind the leaders. Alp having another run at Verstappen, decides to tuck in as Verstappen still running so low on battery, and Shadowglow just looks primed behind, but even he will start to struggle, I imagine, with the wear of the soft tyres. I imagine that's what all these drivers are looking for in that final stint, a soft stint to end the race. That's what I imagine the strategy is for everyone that hasn't made their second mandatory stop. They will be losing time though to drivers like Slash. You can see that fastest lap of the race, 1:33.4. He's running all on his own at the moment there with no one really close in front or behind. 7.3 seconds behind Knuth up in front. So that these guys could all be looking at the lead battle. Hazara, Lifeboat and Knuth. You'd expect them all to be relatively competitive when things do emerge, but they are all running medium compound tyres, and Hazara's have already got quite a few miles on them. So that will be a hard disadvantage. He may well emerge in the lead of this race once all the second pit stops have been made, but it may be a very high struggle to hold on to that position. Lifeboat is closing in. Knuth just about hanging on to the back of the AlphaTauri, just out in front of him. We will see if there are going to be any pit stops. Rocco still holding on behind Pease. We're getting into the point where the mediums can be a good, the softs, can be a good tyre to use, and we're seeing that in action now as 1, 2, 3, the top 3 all go into the pit box. Pease and Rocco remain out on track. So now we're going to get to see where this battle for the lead is going to be fought. Soft will go on again for Shadow Glow. I imagine it will be no different for Verstappen, who also puts on the softs, and ditto for QVR Alp. The order will stay the same out at the pit stops, and you'll see where they come out. Hazara, Lifeboat and Knuth. That is going to be your de facto leading three in terms of net possession. But here are the three men chasing them. Verstappen, Alp, Shadow Glow. 6 cars that are going to dispute the race win here in pre-season at Shanghai, with very little to choose between them. So it's if you want to make a move, it's time now as Lifeboat goes deep on the brakes and gets the move done into turn 6 on Hazara. And now you'd imagine with fresher tyres than those immediately behind him, Lifeboat has now got to run, try and get out of range and look to try and hold on in the lead of this race. Lifeboat has been patient throughout this Grand Prix. Now it is time to open up the taps and try and move away. As you can see, a mistake actually from Hazara, and that's going to potentially benefit Lifeboat trying to break out of DRS range. Knuth will try and set up a move. Hazara gets out of shape through the second part of the snail section, and now Knuth's going to pull alongside, heading out onto the main straight. But he doesn't want to move too early because there's going to be no DRS, and Verstappen's going to take full advantage of that, drawing level with these two down the straight. He gets in front, just in front at the moment. Then Knuth still has DRS. Hazara's trying to use that slipstream. Knuth's trying to get out of that box but can't do it, so he's got the Haas on the inside through the hairpin. He's going to get almost run out of space. They're still side by side up towards the final corner on the track. Is Knuth going to stay in it? No, he has to back out of it. Verstappen's been given a huge lifeline here at China. So now up onto the outside, Knuth trying to get up alongside Hazara, can't quite do it. He runs out of charge, runs out of battery. A Shadow Glow now, he's seen Verstappen move up the road and knows he has to get it done. He goes up on the outside using the grip of those fresh softs, gets up into P5. Knuth is dispatched off. What about Hazara? He gets better traction, better drive on the overtake up towards the outside of turn number 6. He's going to have to brake later. He brakes marginally later. Hazara almost running out of grip, manages to keep it clean and manages to get through. Does Shadow Glow. Is out now on the inside of turn 7. He has to left on that tighter, shallow line. He has got half a car length in front. He has to leave the space on the inside, but Hazara can't quite hold on. And all three of the soft runners scything through that initial train of medium runners so quickly, as now Lifeboat has the net lead, but with Verstappen honing in, this looks like a good chance of victory for Verstappen with a gap to Shadow Glow and out behind. Can he get these moves done quickly? Sweet Crown, of course, still extending. Remember, still has to make one more stop. You can see one stop is served. Lifeboat not even bothering to defend. It's pointless. Here comes Verstappen on the inside. He runs out of battery. Can he get it done on the brakes? He's got to be careful though with the Red Bull in front, but he's going to brake just at the right time and gets that one done. He is P2 now, and with a clear run at Sweet Crown just in front. Is Sweet Crown going to pit? No, he does not. He wants to try and fight it out on track with everyone tucked in behind. So Verstappen now going for the race lead, sets the fastest lap of the race, goes to the inside and goes to the lead. QVR Verstappen now leads in Shanghai, and Lifeboat cleverly following through then, taking advantage of Sweet Crown being forced offline, and will try and keep pace, but that's going to be, of course, a very difficult task. Shadow Glow and Alp have watched that potential victory maybe slip away as Verstappen goes in front. The DRS, you'd imagine, may well be broken on this lap, certainly with Sweet Crown, who of course is struggling on much older tyres. So Shadow Glow and Alp, well, their chances of victory hinge on getting these moves done quickly. Let's see if they can do just that. We're inside the final 6 laps of the Chinese Grand Prix, the pre-season race for League of Europe Season 11. Let's see how things will unfold, and predictably Sweet Crown has lost contact with the group in front. You can see though, and this is a race with no safety cars, the top 9 pretty much in the same camera shot. That is an unbelievably competitive race, and if it wasn't for a couple of incidents, well, this field is remarkably evenly matched. But one thing that isn't evenly matched is the pace in this third place group, and Sweet Crown is going to pay for that then. Alp is going to try and follow through, goes the other side of the Red Bull and draws alongside the other Red Bull. Can he get this one done? on the brakes. He makes a spectacular move down the back straight. 2 cars in one. Splitting Sweet Crown, who gets flanked, has to drop back to 5th place. Is the pit stop going to come now? No, it does not. Sweet Crown continuing to stay out, maybe just banking on a fastest lap, but he is getting some good action in, some wheel-to-wheel racing. Shadowglow cannot attack Alp. You can see the fastest laps coming in from the men with the best tyres in the field, Pease and Rocco. Pease is looking at Hazara, trying to squeeze into a tight space. He's going to do so. Bumps Hazara wide. I think if there was stewards inquiries, that would certainly be one. Pease does get through. Rocco, more contact with Hazara, gets around the outside and into P number 8. Now Knuth has to run just in front of these guys. Is Pease going to look for another daring move into turn 6? No, he's too far back on this occasion. Another rear lock from Knuth, who's beginning to struggle, I imagine, with aging tyres. And Pease looks inside of the turn 7. Is he going to get given the space? He will, just about. He has to lift to stay on the tight line, but remember, he's got much fresher tyres outside of turn number 8, using the grip of the softs, and he gets the move done. Pease now runs P6 on the road as Rocco up behind his teammate for the evening, getting right up, making contact with Knuth. Of course, a big pace deficit for the Mercedes, but you can see now the advantage has come in this 2-stop race of staying out longer because the tyre differences are so huge in this closing stage of the race. Rocco is going to get a huge run here on Knuth, who's already lost contact with Pease, so this is going to be a very easy move for Rocco. They are going to run side by side down the straight for a little while, but eventually Rocco will pull ahead and run P7. Now, at this situation with 4 laps as they come over the line to go, Verstappen has broken DRS to Lifeboat. Alp has not been able to get in DRS of the second place AlphaTauri, and Shadowglow has run out of patience. I think he draws level with Alp down the main straight, and he takes the 3rd position on the road as Sweet Crown does eventually pit, so that will mean every single driver has abided by the 2-stop rule, which is good to see. Everyone managing to sort that one out, and we have actually seen, very interestingly, quite a lot of variety in the strategies run. Of course, this is a new format in League of Europe, and maybe some drivers just deciding to get used to it. So they're going to run it that way. Verstappen out in front and fairly comfortably at this stage. You'd have to say, at the moment, barring any penalties, barring any major mistakes, it does look like the win is at hand for the Aston Martin driver, who hasn't won a race in League of Europe for an awful long time, officially since Season 3. Of course, this one wouldn't count as a Grand Prix win, but it's still a good statement to make ahead of the new season. And he now has 2.1 seconds to the good, as Lifeboat, I imagine, is about to get swamped here. Just cannot quite hold on these mediums versus the infernal pace of the soft runners who close up behind him. Not much ERS for Shadowglow, much more for Lifebout, but he is still going to get into range. Is he going to lunge this one on the bricks? It could secure at least a 2nd place, but cannot quite get the move done at this moment. Is he going to tuck in and go for another one? Alp will try and be opportunistic, try and follow through, look to not let that gap open to the man that currently runs in 3rd place just in front of him, who may well be going for an overtake. You can see the overtake mode is on. There's not going to be much in it in a turn number 1, but he is going to get alongside, and he is going to get through Shadowglow into P2, and he's done that so that Alp cannot immediately get through and runs it to the back of Lifebout. Of course, remember, there is no damage here, so there aren't going to be major consequences for that, but you can see how frustrating it is to see Shadowglow slip away and slip through, getting into that 2nd place with just 3 laps to go, and you sense that he doesn't have much time. Lifebout may well be able to hold on to DRS. Remember, he is still chasing a podium himself, regardless of how tough of a fight this one is for him. Running just half a second ahead of the 4th place man, who still runs on the 5-lap old softs. Of course, the softs will be starting to fade as well at this stage, but they will still be a fighting fit tyre that will be affording more grip than the ones on the AlphaTauri just in front. So that is what Alp is going to use to try and make this move and secure a 3rd position on the road, and maybe, just maybe, stay within DRS range of Shadowglow. He hasn't slipped fully away just yet, so that's why Alp, using that overtake, draining at the battery, now opening the DRS, and it's going to be an academic move, nice and easy, positions himself on the inside going into the hairpin, closing right up on Shadowglow then, later on the brakes, actually not later on the brakes, Lifebout going very ambitiously round the outside but can't quite hold it. Now his fight is going to be trying to hold off Pease and Rocco, or maybe take advantage of any incidents of the two men in front of him. He still has plenty of battery, but not plenty of fuel. Has gone under on that fuel, so maybe running behind these guys could be beneficial. We will see if any other drivers have that fuel light on. Hazara does, trying to chase down Knuth. Those two have been fairly inseparable in this late stage of the race. Apart from that, everyone else has put enough fuel in. They are just fine at the end of this race. Sweet Crown, predictably, the pole setter does set the fastest lap of the race at 1:32.4. An incredibly quick time in race trim. But of course, his race came undone with the jump start. And in a race that, amongst the top 11, has been very high quality without big gaps between them. Of course, this is the nature of league racing on F123 with DRS trains throughout, but still, with the field so closely packed together, it makes it very difficult. For if you make one mistake, that may well spell your race over, especially with no safety cars. One last drink break taken. So Verstappen looks firmly in control of this one, running comfortably out in front by 2 seconds. The battle then is going to be for P2 on the road as Alp looks to be patient. I imagine he's going to use this lap to just set up a move. Neither of these guys have very much battery to use. Lifeboat does behind, but he is running very low on fuel and with a big tyre disadvantage, but he's managed to stay relatively close, so maybe that tyre deficit is beginning to even out. He does run wide to the final corner, doesn't get a penalty, thankfully for him. And he is still in contact then as Alp pulls to the inside. Just a look, just a feint. He's got to be careful though that he doesn't open up any opportunities, because Lifeboat is still right there. Still right in contention. Rocco and Pease, they will share their own private battle for P5 on the road. So the McLaren and the Mercedes, they will be going at it as well. Verstappen is way out in front. He's got this one in the bag. You would certainly not think that he's going to make a race-ending mistake from here. Lifeboat is finally going to use as much battery as possible. Of course, there is the fuel consideration, but he will have a big advantage on the straight, and the gap is relatively small, with one and some kilometres to use. Anything can happen then in this closing stage of the race. Shadowglow has put on a great show, some incredible overtaking throughout this race, I should say, but I fear this may be a tough one to hold as Alp and Lifeboat will close in down the straight. The gaps may seem significant right now, but they're going to be closed quickly. Everyone is going to be on the overtake then, but Shadowglow is going to run out first. So Alp then, here comes the closing speed. He's going to make that move up towards the end of the straight, pulls to the inside and through. Alp goes P2. Lifeboat, though, is unable to follow through. He is going to remain in P4. Rocco's going to make the move on P's, or is he? They're going to be side by side around the end of the race. We will see. He's going to come out on top in that one, but Verstappen round the final corner, he is going to take the pre-season race in Division 1. Second will go to QVR Alp, and third to GR Shadowglow. Rocco will fend off piece of the line. Lifebout will finish in 6th. That is just the pain of running out of fuel in the end. So he's 6th, Knuth 7th, Slash comes across the line in 9th in the end. He also ran out of fuel, so Matt is 8th, Hazara 10th, and look, with a penalty picked up right at the end of the race, he is 12th. Sweet Crown will come over in 11th, and Gary, after spinning off at the start, a race to forget for the Aston Martin as he spins in earnest, heading around the final hairpin. And you can see doing a bit of burnout there, putting on a bit of a show, the F1 organiser in League of Europe. See if he can hold this one in third gear, up to the line, and that eventually will do it for pre-season. That is it then for League of Europe pre-season Lobby 1. Again, sorry about the low turnout for tonight, and again, sorry that Jake couldn't join me, so probably wasn't the best watch, it must be said, but I did try my damnedest just by myself. So once again, we will run through the ending results once they eventually load. As you can see on the podium, QVR Verstappen then taking that race victory And really the key to that one was just the first couple of laps after the final round of pit stops, making those critical moves on the initial race leaders on the mediums. That set it up, and it built a buffer to the real two threats to his race victory. Behind that was Alp and Shadowglow. Great show put on by those guys, but ultimately not quite enough to topple Kvyat Verstappen, who does come away with the race victory by 1.9 seconds. Alp, Shadowglow, Rocco 4th, Pease 5th, that's your top 5. Lifeboat Knuth, Matthew 40, Slash Hazara, Luke, Sweet Crown and Gary with NSX Cucumber, unfortunately not seeing the checkered flag. And again, of course, sorry about these small numbers for tonight. Hopefully that is not going to be the case in the first race of the season proper. But anyway, that is going to be it for pre-season. Again, we should have Jake joining us in the commentary box for the first round of the season in Jeddah. So, Season 11 of the League of Europe will be underway in just a week from now. So, with just about everything said for tonight's broadcast, from myself, Daniel Downey-Hogard, returning to League of Europe, it is going to be a very good evening to you all, and we'll see you next time.